Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's session. Let me start by just basically asking a question, right? I'm pretty sure most of us have seen a problem or something that's happening in your life, in your day to day, and you think you wish you could create a software solution to resolve that problem. But you get hung up on the process of how do I go about to do that, right? What are the steps, or is it too much effort, or I don't even know how to get going on it, right? If this is you, and you are an innovator, you're a business person that wants to create solutions, this is the right presentation for you. So in today's presentation, we are going to talk about the challenges and how to go about building a SaaS solution. And if you're not familiar with the SaaS solution, that stands for software as a service. But we'll give you more background on that, and we're going to present a process that enables anyone to think about that problem and try to create a software solution for that with a small amount of investment and effort. Okay, so this presentation is targeted to individuals, innovators, business people that want to be able to create some kind of SaaS software solution for a business, right? So let's get going. So welcome to today's presentation. My name is Oscar. Good to meet you. Um, I've been an enterprise application architect. I work with cloud, web, data, and AI technologies. I'm passionate about building a software solution and sharing my experience with everyone in that community. I'm also an author of the book Data Engineering Process Fundamentals. If you are into data engineering, my book covers the process, right? How to actually start a project, how to go into discovery, design, architecture, implementation, and so on. And I cover some of the latest technologies that you can use. This book is also backed by a GitHub repo. So if you want access to those repos, I'll leave the link to on the chat, but you can scan the QR code and that will take you to a portal where you can actually access those links. But let's get started on software as a service. What is it? What is this mysterious service, and why is this any different than any other software solution? Well, to start with, it's really the delivery model for this software is basically different. So it basically consists of a kind of a monthly or yearly fee for the usage of the software. And just to start with that, it gives you a such an advantage because some of the users don't want to invest a lot of money on a software solution, right? Without even knowing what that solution can do for them. So basically, they want to go into it with a low risk, right? Get used to the software, see if it's actually beneficial to them, and use it. Some of the features for a SaaS solution is that it's cloud hosted. And this is key here because what this does, it actually minimizes your costs. You don't have to be building out a data center, building out things that will cost a lot of money. You basically just either create a service or the infrastructure on Azure or AWS or Google Cloud, whichever. Or you can even there are some services out there that enables you to basically just sort of create applications with minimum UI, basic UI for you to create something. For example, if your idea is to capture a to-do list or something like that, right? You can actually build that with no code. It's just all of it. It will be a low code, no code type approach. But the key here is that it is a very convenient and cost effective way to access and use software to the end users, to the consumers, which is the key for actually having a success in building out a solution. As people are joining us, welcome everyone. Welcome. I am Oscar, your presenter today. So let's continue. So how do we do this, right? So we understand SaaS is a cloud-hosted, monthly, subscription-based software solution. But okay, so I kind of get that idea now. But how do I go about to do this, right? What are the steps? What is the process? So basically, it all starts with a problem identification, right? So in your day to day, you probably see something. You're probably at home, at work, while driving, maybe when you're playing football, baseball, what have you, right? And you see something, and you figure, man, there's nothing out there that can help me deal with this problem. What can I use? How do I Is this a good idea for me to build something around this problem? So that's the first thing you got to do: identify that need, that problem, right? And then you have to take a look and do a little bit of market research, right? Because the idea could be great, but maybe it's not feasible. And what do I mean by that? Maybe something that there doesn't have a market, right? There's people don't use it, even though to us or to you as an individual, you think, oh, this is a great idea, but it has to be something that people like and people find it interesting to you. So you have to do a little bit of market research and kind of understand the demand for it, and analyze if there are people already building this out, right? And how they are performing. If there's somebody that already built something similar and they're just not performing good, then you sort of understand maybe it's not, maybe this solution is not that good, it's not effective for your business. So then after you kind of understand that there is a market for it, that you understand, hey, I think I can build something, and people are going to use it. Then you have to define a business model, right? A business model, because without just the software alone is not enough. You need to build a business around that and understand how you're going to make money and how you're going to pay for expenses, right? So this is key. So now you have actually have to turn yourself from a innovator to a business person, right? And sort of understand what you need to do. So you have to define the pricing, the subscription tiers, and the payment options, right? For revenue generation. So what that means is, for example, is the software, perhaps, is it a $20 subscription fee per month good enough? Does that really cover for my expenses? What is my margin, right? For my earning margin, if that's the case. Do you define different tiers? So for example, maybe $20 for a low tier, $50 for a medium tier, and for the high tier, right, with more features, then you charge $100, for example. And these numbers are not fixed, right? These are numbers that I'm just throwing out there, but usually depending on your solution, the subscriptions could be $200, $300, right? But what's important here is to you make an evaluation that you may have different tiers, like basic, middle, and premium, right? Or plus, whatever you want to call that. And think about those models, because the more features you add, then the users are going to use it more, right? So, and maybe the basic tier, it could be even free in some instances, because you want people to kind of use it with no risk, adopt it, and then they can invest into the premium, into the plus service, and then you start making money. So that's the business model. So you have to evaluate how that's going to go for you. And you also have to get into financial planning, right? So we have to create a budget for the development, the technology, the development effort, right? That's the programming. If there is any coding or low coding that you're doing, also the technology that you are going to use, the marketing, and the support costs. And this is one thing that is key here. Marketing and support costs are key for this financial planning, because for this to be successful, you have to have marketing. Without marketing, this is not going anywhere. And of course, you need to be able to support your users. Otherwise, people are just not, if they don't get any help, they're just not gonna stick out. You need to also create a technology budget, right? So estimate the cost of your technology stock, the tools, and the third-party services. So depending on what you're using. If you're using maybe some cloud provider like AWS, like Google Cloud, and perhaps you're using, for example, Firebase, BigQuery as a backend, uh, or whatever other technology that you're using, understand what is your monthly cost, and what is the forecast on the users that you're going to be hosting, right? With the understanding that if you're successful, that's going to continue to grow, and then you can adjust your technology, you can increase your services and be able to scale more. So you have to sort of have an idea how that's going to work and understand it. A lot of these SaaS solution companies, they give you, for example, you can build mobile apps that you can basically quickly spin off in an hour or less, and they handle all of that for you, right? So it's completely separated from understanding cloud technologies, for as an example. And this fits well with business people that don't have any technology background. They don't want to deal with technology, but for some other people that want to have more control, want to be able to perhaps build some mobile app using programming languages, right? Then you get deeper into managing this technology. So just be familiar with that, right? And of course, the more you do, the more time it's going to take to build out your solution. And of course, marketing and support costs, as I mentioned before, is key. Don't ignore that. That is important. Okay, so we sort of understand we have a process, we have a plan, but how do we do this? How do we approach this now with a technical, from a technical standpoint? How do we build this, right? And one thing here that is key, and when building something new, a new idea, is that you need to be able to define what we call a MVP, which is minimum viable product. And what that means is, so for example, let's say your your software, your software has 10 features that you think like, man, this is gonna work, this is great, I love it. But in reality, perhaps of those 10 features, um, users only really use 4, right? That's where 85% of the usage is focused on those 4 features. So the other 6 are not core features, they're probably just additional features, enhancements that make it more user friendly, or have some kind of, for example, events, notifications, things like that, but they're not part of the core feature. And this is important to kind of identify, because the more you put into your buckets, the longer it's going to take you to build this out, right? So for example, take an example of a Kanban board, right? We use this every day in our development process, and you're going to have a backlog, and the backlog is going to have all this work, and you actually commit certain items into your sprint, right? And you're ready queue to be able to work, and then you focus on that. Well, that's a kind of similar concept, right? Understand the core features, still create your backlog with additional features, because this is going to change. More features are going to be created as you get user feedback, but it's important to maintain your backlog and understand how to identify the things that are really important. So you iterate with feedback, right? So this is key. What does iterate with feedback means is, as you develop your solution and you test it out and you give it to beta users, and the beta users really are maybe free accounts that you're giving out to a set of users, 4 or 5 users, maybe even friends or family, and you asking them, hey, please, can you use this? Give me feedback. What do you think is happening, right? As you get this feedback, then you iterate through that, and then you will notice that things that were in your backlog may not be relevant anymore, because you're getting additional feedback to improve your application, right? So you keep collecting feedback so you can actually enhance that technology, right? So you need to also understand what is the technology that you are going to use. Are you going to do for example, are you going to use React? You're gonna use Angular to build your solution, or are you gonna be using a low code, no code development platform, like maybe Microsoft Power Platform that enables you to build applications, mobile apps, backends, just using a little bit of code, right? So an excellent uh, low code solution. Are you gonna be using that, or are you just gonna build out your application? You're going to build your CI/CD pipelines, continuous integration, continuous delivery, which what that means. If you're not familiar with that, it only means a way to, um, you're gonna have to build, as you code a solution, you're gonna have to build it, you're gonna have to deploy it, right? So you need to evaluate that. Do you have those expertise or you don't, right? And kind of understand what is the approach, right? There's tons of people now with AI that are building SaaS solution, right? And they're really taking the no code approach for a lot of this. But with that, there's a trade-off, right? If you use a no-code platform, it's really that platform that maintains that technology. You can now move it somewhere else. You commit it to that platform. If you build it yourself, I mean, you can use any cloud provider, and you can move your code wherever you want, and you can host it and you own it, and you have no problem. But it's a trade-off. You need to understand where you are and how you're gonna do this, because if you do build it, if you code it, if you use some programming language, it's gonna take you a bit longer, right? And in some cases, that's the only way to do it, by the way, right? Because this no code platforms, they're really easy to do, but they're very limited in their feature sets, right? They're good at creating UIs that are kind of like a form, data entry forms, and little in workflows, right? But they're anything else other than that, they're just not good at that, right? So you just need to evaluate what you are building and make those decisions. So also cloud provider, as I talked about, you can either do like if you're building it, use Azure, AWS, Google Cloud, or you can just use so many of those smaller platforms that are building out the UI for you, right? But just understand that you need to consider the hosting options, like I talked about before, because if you commit to that platform, in some instances, they won't. I mean, that's it. That's how your software was built. You can't move it somewhere else. There's no migration. And if you build it and you deploy it, then make sure that when you are uh, provisioning resources on the cloud platform, that you can scale, that you can easily scale, right? It's because if you're successful, then you will have more users. So you need to kind of have that mindset, right? So you need to be open-ended, have an open-ended design so you can actually be flexible, agile, and change quickly. But okay, so we kind of understand our MVP, our core features, and let's say we sort of committed to building the app ourselves. Let's say we decided that we're using React for our front end. We're using React Native for building out the mobile app. So if that's the case, what are the operational concerns, right? So when I talk about operations, it's really is that back office process, right, where you actually manage the software or the solution, right? So for example, um, how do we update the software? How do we deploy it? How do we provision new accounts? What is the process? So for example, if you're selling it, how is this self provision? So for example, when they go there and they sign up for it, all they got to do is use their Google account, their Microsoft account, and they can sign up for themselves. So that's a self provisioning sort of sign up approach, and that's fine if that's how that works. In some other instances, let's say you are building out an application that is much bigger than that, in the sense of they have a group of people, not just an individual. So basically, your target customers is companies, right? And they have 10, uh, 20 users, right? So usually the approach for that is that you need to provision. Let's say you need to provision a static web app instance with a Cosmos DB backend, uh, um, serverless functions, right? And you're building out this software solution. There's a little more enterprise like, right? So you need to provision a tenant to them, right? A tenant. So that means that they need to provision their own account. You need to provision them with a way to access their resources, by creating perhaps a tenant where you deploy the serverless functions and the database and so on. And they can log in with their emails, for example, and you have the authentication process, security, and they live in their own little tenant world. So that's a different, right? That's a more enterprise like SaaS solution. So for those concepts, and for smaller applications as well, you need to kind of understand what is the build process, right? How do I update it? Either if I'm building my enterprise solution, or I'm just building a smaller, a little UI, a small UI that's just doing a couple of things. But what is the build automation process? How do I update this? How do I go about to make changes and publish them, right? So that's important to sort of understand the security, right? So like I talked about how they can log in with Google credentials or Microsoft credentials. That's kind of a federated security. If you take that approach, these systems are usually well secured, but you need to understand that, right? And have an understanding of data security and user privacy, because right now everything is getting hacked. People are stealing data everywhere, so you need to be aware of those problems, right? Data management. So how are you going to get your data if you don't own the database, right? For example, if you have one of these no code platforms, how do I own my data, right? My user base, my whatever it is that you are capturing, how do you get that data? How do you back up that data or recover the data, and so on? So if you created a database, it's the same problem. If you have Cosmos DB, Firebase, how do you manage this data, right? And usually a cloud provider will give you backups, recovery strategies, and all those things. But it's important just to kind of check mark that, right? And kind of understand that you don't have to worry about that. But if I do have to worry about that, what is my strategy? And the ability to scale, right? If you are all of a sudden you are growing, all these cloud platforms give you the ability to scale, and so you want to have that open-ended design so you can do that. Okay, so you have an MVP, you have your UI, you kind of created a beta group, and it's giving you feedback. You feel confident. You feel like I want to reach out more audience, more users. Um, what is the process for that, right? How do I go about to do that? So this is where now we moved on from innovation as a technology individual into sort of a business person, understanding what is the business behind this technology, how do I go about to do this. And now we have to move into a sort of a marketing person, right? We need to sort of understand these things, right? How do I do this? What's key? How do I get my application in front of people, right? So it is important when you are building a SaaS solution is to have a strong market presence, right? So if you have a marketing and product side, that will help you with user adoption, right? So how does this work? So you probably have let's say you have an application, right? You have an app. Let's say it's a website that that is that you can load on the mobile devices as well as desktop and so on. Okay, but how do I provide this to users, right? So the first thing is to create some marketing site. And the marketing site is really going to be able to tell users, hey, I have this product, right? And it does this for you. And sign up for it is pretty cool. It's going to give you all these features and so on, right? And this is really the eye candy, right? This is really the way to attract users, right? And you have to be very good at SEO, search engine optimization. So you're when users are doing Google searches, they can find you and so on, right? And you have to be able to perhaps track your users that are visiting you, or maybe just let them send you a message, right? But you need to track them. Maybe use a CRM, and you don't have to do all of these things at once, right? But what's important here, like for example, you don't have to use a CRM, but it'll be good to use a CRM to track your leads and understand your business, what's going on, right? But you could just create the marketing website and maybe use Google Analytics, right, to track the activity of users, where they are coming from. Are they using more mobile devices than desktop devices, and so on, right? And this gives you excellent feedback on your user base and your target customers, right? But so you create a marketing site, is giving everybody the big announcement: this, my software, my SaaS solution is great, please use it, right? But now, how do they know more about it, right? Now, when it comes to the what are the feature sets, what is the support, how do I ask questions, right? And then you probably have a product site, and this product site is really where people can go there, maybe look at questions and answers, right? Core concepts, user guides, anything that tells users, hey, this is what the product is all about. And you can combine the marketing side with the product side. It's really that's not really a problem. So the marketing side could have like a support link or page, or product page. So, but the concept is that you need to have those two concepts, right? Of the marketing and then the product, because the product is going to help the users. Hey, I'm having a problem doing certain things, and they are going to go to the Q&A to be able to find that out, right? Because people complaining problems, or when you actually are tracking user behavior, you kind of see people getting not being able to advance for some reason. So you create a Q&A, a knowledge base, things, features, tools like that that enable users to answer their own questions. But it is important because this shows that you are reaching out to them, that you are actually looking to help your users, right? So so now you kind of create that. Where do I deploy that? And the same thing applies. You need to pick your cloud hosting, AWS, Google Cloud, and you need to understand how you're going to manage this. So on top of this, remember, there is your product, right? Your SaaS solution. We have the marketing and product sides that are only giving users feedback and support, but you also have the actual SaaS solution, the application, which is either a mobile device from app stores, or a website, right, where they log in, they come in, log in, and what have you. So you just kind of understand that you have all those assets that you need to manage. So how do I do that? So in addition to marketing and having my websites, um, I could use a marketplace, right? So a marketplace really is like the app store, right? So if it is a mobile application, you can use the Google App Store as an example to deploy there. And then this enables users to actually get the app and pay for the app and all that. So the marketplace will handle for you the financial transaction. So as you charge them, right? So for example, you charge for the monthly fees, the marketplace will take care of the invoicing, the monthly billing, the transactions, and then they will forward to you all the do you have an account with all the money that you're having. If it is like an application, for example, like a website, not a mobile marketplace, you have also marketplaces for Azure, AWS, where you can actually market your application, and so many others, right? So there's so many other cloud platforms out there where actually they tell you, okay, build something, and then they tell you, okay, do you want to put this in the marketplace, right? Like many um, CRM platforms enable you to build SaaS solutions that complement the CRM for something unique that you are building. So use the marketplace if you want to, if you do not to start with, you want to deal with the financials, with the transactions, taking credit cards and all that, because that takes longer, right? That takes more time to create a merchant account and things of that nature. Then you can just use a marketplace, and then as you grow, you evolve. But that's an important channel to understand that it exists, and to actually take advantage of, right? So now that you have your marketing, you are, people are signing up, you have a few users that are coming in. This is where you actually now move on from that marketing concept. Now is into the operational concept of supporting your application, right? So by just deploying it and building a solution is not enough. Once you start dealing with software, the changes on that software never stops. If you stop that updating that software, it's probably gonna eventually die, fail, right? So this is an ongoing process, right? It's an ongoing process of understanding what's working, what's not working, what's useless, what feature people are not even using, and not invest any more money or any more effort on building that out. So you need to have a plan for continuous retention. So how do I keep my users, and how do I gather more users? so so you need to implement that feedback mechanism, right, to gather user insights. So you either get that product website that I talked about, where you have knowledge base and Q and A's, and ability for someone to reach out to you for questions or for problems. Or your SaaS solution, right? Your SaaS solution could have a feature to add that support. But be mindful of this, right? We talked about that your SaaS solution needs to identify MVP core features. Support, even though it's important, is really not a core feature of the application. So that's why it's important to build it perhaps as a channel outside of your application. So instead of building emailing and chat and text and all that into your MVP, you just kind of have a product website where you handle all of that, right? So in your application, what you do is you probably just tell them, look, for support, press this button, and it opens the product website where you can actually handle all those things outside. And the reason behind that is because there are so many products out there that you can wire to your application to collect like software, where you can collect the user information and the issue, create tickets, and so on, right? So think about that and evaluate it. But your application, your SaaS solution, could just have a button that allows them to go and get this feedback to you. Also, there is what's called App Insights, right? So this is a way to, similar to how Google Analytics works. Google Analytics, if you wire Google Analytics to your application, let's say a website, for example, um, you can track all the user activities. What that means is that you can track what pages the user looked at, what buttons they clicked, and so on. And this is really capturing user behavior, right? So what that basically tells you is that they will see that the analytics will show that the users using page 1, 2, and 4, but they never use page 3. Why? Right. It also shows you that the users, to get to a particular point that is maybe 80% of the activities of the app, the user has to do 4 clicks. This is not efficient for the user, right? So then you sort of understand this and start thinking, 4 clicks is too much. How can we make it easier for them? Because this is where they're more active. So you need to understand that user behavior and see how the difficulties that they are facing, and sort of get that feedback. So App Insights is the ability to have traceability to all of that, and you get all this telemetry data telling you how users are behaving and how your application is acting. So this is very important for you to grow be able to continue to grow your application and make it more um, efficient for your end users, improve the usability of the application, right? So, and as you get this feedback, this is not enough, right? So you have user feedback, you have app insights feedback, you kind of triage this information, you kind of see, okay, oh wow, we got 70-80% of our users are having problems with this item, with this issue. Let's prioritize that, let's put that into our ready queue, develop it, and then deploy and push an update to it, right? So this is really important to do this process, right? And you can also build additional channels like community channels where people can actually go and talk about your features, talk about the product, talk about what's good, what's bad, and so on. So all these channels are really important for you to sort of understand what's going on, right? So in addition to that, things like YouTube channels, if it is complicated, right? So for example, some of these smaller apps are very straightforward, intuitive enough. You don't need to build all of that. But if it's complicated, build out channels to be able to for YouTube channels to show how the application can be used, why does it work this way, and so on, right? So this is kind of important to do, right? Continue to grow your knowledge base. This is what's going to self-service people to be able to say, I'm having this problem, but your knowledge base is going to give them the answer, right? So this is important. So use a help desk software or applications like Slack. This is going to allow you to manage this application, and you don't have to do all of this in one shot. It's a progressive process. You continue to add this, but just kind of be mindful that you need to have a support channel, whether it's maybe just the app website with the support with knowledge base and so on. But you build this out and you grow it, and as you build this out, your SaaS solution also improves. Okay, so I'm giving you a lot of information to go and think about how you can get started. So let's just recap on this, right? So how do you start? So just kind of identify that problem. If you have an idea, you never acted on that idea, right? Or that problem that you are identifying, you figure, I could build something like this. Then kind of start understanding, right? Understand what is the market for it, and understand that you don't have to go big bang. You don't have to build it through code, maybe a low code, no code platform to start with, just to see how that works, just to see how users are buying it. And then you evolve, right? You continue to grow it. Identify what the MVP is. Don't pound the solution with a lot of features that people are not even interested in using, right? And this is a normal case that we go through, that we think, oh, these are all cute, but until you have a real user feedback, you really don't understand what are the features that they are using. So kind of have a mindset on that to identify what the MVP is, go to a beta program, get feedback on that, and then iterate through it, right? Make it better, improve it, and so on. Don't forget operations, right? You need to kind of have operations. How are you going to change it? How are you going to get that feedback? How are you going to process that feedback into code changes or application changes? And how are you going to deploy that, right? And how you're going to support this to scale and to manage your data. All of that is important. So you have to have some understanding that is going to be a need eventually in the long run. But you don't have to build it. If you go for a no-code solution, they will handle all of that for them. But it's important for you to ask the questions. Hey, what if I need my data? What if I need to take my data with me to another platform? Things like that. Start use AI for marketing. Start using AI. Hey, I have this idea, and go from brainstorming, right? That's another thing that I forgot to cover. Once you have that idea, use AI and pitch that idea to AI, talk to it, and you'll see AI will probably start giving you a lot of pointers, right? And a lot of guidance. Same with marketing. Hey, AI, I need to do marketing. My idea is this. What is a good concept for marketing? And it will help you with that, right? Support, definitely the feedback. website, email support, chatbot eventually once you get more into the product, and so on, and iterate always, because this is going to continue. This software is not you build it and that's it. It's going to continue. People are going to ask you for more features. Technology is going to change and it's going to get deprecated, and you're going to have to change it. Maybe your cloud, your SaaS hosting provider is going to go out of business if you selected a no code, and you need to kind of be prepared for those things, right? So the key here is that follow some concepts, understand what building a SaaS solution is all about, and don't think that you have to spend a lot of money on that. Just start small and just get that concept out there, right? Just if it is a no-code solution, just get it out there, build that UI. So easy. Send it to friends and family, have them give you feedback, and then you start small and then you continue to grow. Okay. So if you have any questions, let me know. I think we have 3-4 more minutes. Any questions? Just add them to the chat or the Q&A, whichever is easier for you. If not, if you don't have any questions, I'll let you go. And I really appreciate you joining me today. I thank you for that time. Also, just to remind you, take a look at this book. Take a look at that QR code, please. Go to my GitHub repos. I have repos on data engineering, AI, machine learning. Actually, the machine learning and the data engineering repos are very popular. There's a lot of information there, and I'm planning to do for the summer. We're gonna do about 6 sessions on data engineering, taking you from discovery all the way to deployment of a analytics service using dashboards and so on, right? All of this using cloud technologies, Python, and so on. So it's going to be very interesting. And also, I also have another one coming out for machine learning. That's going to show you the process of building machine learning solutions from the very beginning, from a data engineering standpoint to a machine learning data scientist standpoint, and so on. So take a look at those GitHub repos, please. If you like them, just give them a star, and I'll be sending more information on the community. So thank you. Thank you for joining me today. Okay. Thanks.